Okay, we're going to start with a simple sphere. And hang on one second, let me reorganize my layout here just so it all fits on one screen. Okay, there we go. I'm going to create a material and assign it to this sphere, and this will just be our demonstration model. So open up our material editor, and we're going to activate our displacement, and we're going to start by adding a layer into our texture. We'll activate subpoly displacement and round geometry. But I think the easiest way to really visualize this is going to be in the color channel. So let's start by adding a layer into our color channel, and we'll add color, and we'll set it to be a red, and we'll add another color, and this time we'll set it to be blue. Well, let's do green instead. All right, so we got our red and our green. We're going to add a noise pattern. I'm going to drop that in between the two colors and set its blending mode to be layer mask. Now what this is going to do is this will allow the red to be masked out by the white of the noise pattern, and wherever the noise pattern is black, it will allow the green to shine through. Now I may have that backwards. I tend to confuse those two. So turn on our interactive render region here. Resize it as necessary, and this little triangle here, this controls the quality of the render. So we drop it down there, it's like half render, half res, all the way up, it's full. So we can go into our noise pattern here, and we're going to increase the global scale, and just going to adjust the high and low clip to tighten the white to black. And then you see there that we have the red and the green showing through. Clear that out real quick because we're not going to work with that. We're going to go back to our displacement and add a noise pattern. Now, initially, because we're using subpoly displacement, that typically doesn't like to work on primitive objects. So by converting that to a polygonal object, we now see our displacement coming through. So I'm going to duplicate our noise patterns here, and we're going to start creating our layer to work with. I'm going to start with the Poxo, and we see that that's kind of getting to be pretty spiky. I'm going to adjust the high and low clip a little bit here just to give it some interest. Turn on our other noise patterns, go to the top one, and we'll just switch this to be a cranial noise pattern. And then we'll use our middle noise pattern as our layer mask. And you can start to see here that we're starting to blend these two noise patterns. So it's not just a plain Poxo or a plain cranial noise pattern. We're getting some variation. And we can adjust where these come through by adjusting the high and the low clip. The high and the low clip adjust essentially the brightness of the white or the darkness of the dark. The highs and the lows of the noise pattern. We can add another noise pattern over the top, and then this will add just a little bit more interest. You should always be careful making sure that you're using only as many noise patterns as you actually need to create the effect that you're trying to go for. Now I'm going to copy the displacement noise and paste it into the color channel. And now we can go in and we can see how the black and white noise pattern, noise layer that we've created in the displacement is affecting the color channel. So one by one, we'll go into each noise pattern and we'll start to assign it a color. On the bottommost layer here, I think we'll try to do kind of this golden, pukey, brownish looking color here. Go back up and we'll add our layer mask back and our screening pattern. And this time, let's do something more like a light blue. Now, we're going to keep this a little bit lighter. This is going to be screening. We're not going to do white because otherwise that's going to blow everything out. And now on our topmost layer, this is also being screened. So we're going to keep it in the mid value as well. So again, so it doesn't blow everything out. Now we're starting to create something pretty interesting, all procedurally. We're going to copy this and paste it into our luminance channel. And because luminance works best with a light, we're going to add a light into our scene and adjust its shadow. We're going to give it some shadows, adjust the shadow map. There we go. Now, we're not actually seeing much shadowing because luminance is set to 100%. So let's add in a subsurface effect, which will play off of the light. I'd like to start with cream preset. Set its path length according to the size of the scene. This is a pretty small scene, so I'm going to set it to 1 centimeter. And it's already not really coming through that well, so I'm going to adjust the individual color paths down by half using our rule of doubles and halves. Now we're starting to get something, but we're getting pretty blown out. Let's turn off our reflectance for the moment. Okay, that's still getting pretty blown out. Let's move our light away from the object. Move it up and away. Alright. Now that's starting to get pretty blown out still. Okay, hold on. Here we are. We need to change this to multiply mode. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting that detail in the highlight as well. We may not need this to be quite so low. Let's bump this up to 2. There we go. The path length is starting to go all the way through now. We'll add our reflectance back in. I like to work with Beckman. Now, instantly here, this is going to render completely reflective, and since there's nothing else in the scene, it's totally black. So let's set this to a dielectric Fresnel. And now the reflection will only be around the edges. Now, we don't have anything in the scene right now to actually reflect, so this isn't coming through. So let's just see if it can reflect itself by sticking it into a MoGraph object. Let's get a few more of these on screen. We'll switch this to grid, or oops, excuse me, not object. We'll go to grid array. And let's increase its size. 500 should do it. Press the H key to reframe everything in our scene. And now we're going to sit here and wait while the subsurface scattering renders. Alright, this is going to start taking quite a while, so I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, I've skipped ahead now, and instead of using subsurface scattering, let's use something that renders a little bit quicker for the sake of this demo, and we're going to use Chanlum. Set it to multiply. And what Chanlum is doing is it is going to look at the shadows that are being created by the light in the scene, and it's going to map a specific color based on the colorizer that we've just applied. It will map, in this case, by the default, yellow, red, and black. Yellow will be in the highlight, black will be in the absolute shadow, and red will be in the middle. Turn our interactive render region back on, and you can start to see this come through. This isn't very intriguing, so let's adjust these colors a little bit. And we'll do, since this is going to be multiplied, we don't want these to be overly dark. Let's see here. Alright, so let's see how that's looking. And that's looking pretty dark. Let's adjust our mid-tone a little bit here and our core shadow. And move this back to the blue range. Let's see how that's looking. That's still looking pretty dark, but you're starting to see in the shadowy areas that it's not quite black anymore. So let's bump this up a bit more. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm going to still lighten up the dark a bit more and distribute these knots so they're a bit more even. There we go. Now we're starting to see a bit of a lighting effect coming through. Back into our reflectance channel. I'm going to drop this reflectance, the strength of this Fresnel, so we're getting more reflection coming off of the front as well. Increasing the roughness just so it's not quite such a harsh specular. And now we're starting to get some nice reflection on there as well. Now, right now, the displacement is doing all the heavy lifting here. If we use a normalizer in the normal channel, we can kind of distribute that a little bit. So we'll add in a noise pattern to our normalizer. And now choose a noise pattern. And increase the strength of this just so we can see it. And we see nothing. And the reason for that is because the normalizer needs to be in UV 2D space. So back in our noise pattern, we changed that to UV 2D, and now we can see something happening. Might be a little far away right now to really see what's happening. So hang on, let's shut off our interactive render region. We'll zoom in a bit here just so we can see one particular one. And turn, oops, wrong key command, my apologies. Turn on our interactive render region again. And now we start to see that that surface is starting to have a bit more detail thanks to the normal map. Turn that off just for comparison real quick. This may not be the greatest noise pattern to be using. So here, let's switch this out real quick. Let's go with let's go with the FBM. That might show something nice. We'll increase the high and low clip again, just so we're starting to see. We can really see that difference where it's being affected versus not. Now you see all the fine bump patterns on the surface of this sphere. That's all being driven by the normal channel. What we can actually do is we can reduce the subpoly displacement subdivision levels, and we'll let the normal channel carry more of the detail and make the displacement channel work a little bit easier.